So let's go ahead and get to our picks. And I'm going to, as we take a look too, before we do that, let me just quickly. So I tell you what, the first thing I want to do is let's show the picks first, because anybody that wants to check them out, all you guys have to do is just, as you know, pause, and you can write down whatever you want here. But let's go over the strategy, the formula, Brady, that you're going to use all season, so everybody understands what it is, so we don't have to go through it every week. It's pretty self-explanatory, of course. So you have 3 different ways that you're going to be wagering on golf. And here are your picks. So explain your formula here.
Yeah, I basically bet 3 different markets in golf, traditionally, religiously, week in and week out, and not always every single one of them. It depends on the tournament. It depends on the time of the year. But basically, I'm going to have some action in the outright market, who's going to win the golf tournament, and then also the finish position markets, maybe a top 5, a top 10, a top 20 finish, maybe even a top 40 finish. And then also the head-to-head matchups. And the head-to-head matchups are a market where you have the best chance to win. You have, you're at slightly more of a disadvantage to win in a finish position market. And then the hardest market, basically, to cash is the outright winner. So I will risk the least amount of money in the outright market. And we've just used basic dollar amounts here. Yes. You see on the graphic there that, let's say we're going to risk $20 in the outright market. I will pretty much go to 2 or 2.5 times that in the finish position market. And therefore we've used $50 on those plays. And then the head-to-head matchup market will be where you risk a full unit. Let's say that's $100, whatever your unit is. But that's how I like to, have a schedule or what would that be called? A breakdown of how much I'm risking in each market. The outright market, again, the least, the finish position market, a little bit more, and then the most on the head-to-heads. And that correlates with where you have the best chance to cash. I'm going to risk more where I have the best chance to cash. Now, that being said as well, you've got different, numerical numbers there, odds, obviously. Okay. And on the graphic there, we're showing $20 on each player. That is typically not the case unless I'm betting a player. Each player is at the same odds. I'm going to adjust my risk amount depending on the odds. Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to bet the same amount on a guy that's 100 to 1 as I'm betting on a guy that's 10 to 1. Okay. I'm basically trying to win a certain amount, and I'm going to adjust my bet accordingly. And then whatever it is I bet on that person in the outright market, I might bet 2 or 3 times as much on a finish position market. And again, the head-to-head matchup. So we're trying to create a picture here for you where you can relate to this money management system, if you will. The most risk on the head-to-heads, a medium amount of risk on the finish position, and the least amount of risk in the outright market.
All right. And then I am a little old-fashioned, and I go after, again, the reason I love golf and NASCAR handicapping, as we've talked about before, is that it just gives you an opportunity to make, a good amount of money by winning one tournament. I know I've had these situations in golf handicapping for seasons sometimes where I can go like 0 for 12. And then I get the 13th week, I got a winner, and I'm almost even with the amount of money that I spent with the first 12.
Yep.
So it's not the way you want to do it, but it's just a point that you can be in a losing streak in golf, and it can get right back to it if you hit it for that 1 week. So those are my picks. And again, this is exactly what Brady was talking about, how my dollar amount gets lower here based on how the odds go higher. And I'm sure starting next week, Brady will be able to, Brady will put in his own figures. I put him in just as a model this week, but Brady will put in his own figures next week, and you'll pretty much see the same thing. Okay. So now let's go ahead and go through, and then we'll talk about your picks and such as we go through here. So Xander Schauffele is the heavy favorite. And I don't know about you, but I try to always avoid the heavy favorites unless I am really, really just, he's so hot, like a Scotty Scheffler. He's so hot. He's really good here. not wild about some of these other players this week. And hey, it's sort of like horse racing. Hey, sometimes you got to just go with the heavy favorite and there's nothing you can do about it. Go with the even money horse. And that's basically what I do as well. But here, I just don't see the reason to do that. We know how good Xander Schauffele is, but I just can't put money on a Xander Schauffele this week, considering the fact that, yes, he has won here before, and I get that. But his putting seems to be, lately. And again, I don't really see it with Xander this week at such a low number.
Well, he hasn't played in a long time.
We
haven't seen Xander Schauffele since the Tour Championship back in August. So yeah, no, he was not a guy I landed on either. And I'm pretty much with you. I certainly want to know who the favorite is, and I'll certainly take a look at those top 3, 4, 5 guys on the board, and sometimes I will land on them. As far as the shortest shot, I was on Scotty Scheffler at the Hero World Challenge at I think it was plus 225.
Yeah, right.
You know what? He probably should have been minus 225.
Yeah.
I was on John Rahm. I think one time at about 9-1 when he won the Masters. I think I played him in game at like plus 250 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm not certainly immune to
Yep.
The absolute chalk, but yeah, typically I'm diving down the board. I mean, at the end of the day, Greg, I don't care where a guy is on the odds board. But if he's underpriced, then I'm probably going to be betting on him. If a guy's being listed at 30-1 and I think he should be 15-1, then I'm going to bet him. Yep. Like I said, Scotty Scheffler, I mean, this is something I like to reference out here in Las Vegas. People, I think, overuse the word in sports betting, value. Okay. They think just because it has a plus in front of it, it's value. A plus price doesn't necessarily equate to value in my mind.
That's right.
Floyd Mayweather, who never lost a fight, at minus 500 was value. He should have been minus 2,000,
Yeah,
right? So it just depends on value is better described as, are you getting a good deal? Are you getting a nice price? If a steak typically costs $20 at the grocery store and you find it for 10, then that's value. So, yeah, I don't think the favorites always offer value, but in the case of Scheffler and Mayweather and, some certain instances, certainly they make sense.
Okay. Now, as far as some of the top contenders here, which this is a good group here, out of this group, and you saw I did take Justin Thomas, and I think Justin Thomas is probably one of the players that is the happiest that Scotty Scheffler around. Justin's just having a hard time winning lately, especially when Scotty's in the same event. But Justin's starting to play good golf again. And that's the reason why out of all these top players, I wanted to go with him. I know his putting hasn't been all together well and on Bermuda. And that's the thing, at least lately. And I think that's one of the things I'm a little bit concerned with. But he is a 2-time champ. He's done really well here. And over his last 3 events, he's really put together a run that we hadn't seen from Justin in almost a year and a half or so. So I think he's got his game going again. And without Scotty, I think it's worth it. Whereas the other top contenders here, if you look at Colin Morikawa, you just mentioned Schauffele. Well, Morikawa hasn't played since October 27th at the Zozo, and he performed pretty well there. But what I noticed was that Morikawa has such a good resume here. He has finished 7th or better in all 5 times he made appearances here. 3 top 5s and a runner-up. But keep this in mind. Last year, when he finished 5th, for instance, he won the Zozo and then was 7th at the Hero. But if you look at his altogether previous 5 trips to this event, he always played at least the Hero, or I think it was Dubai. But this year, he hasn't played since October 27th, and it wasn't a good result. So this is the first time he's coming into this event really just cold, and he hasn't done anything. And I think that's you're always looking to, or at least I am always looking to nitpick the favorites, the top guys, because you kind of want to avoid them if you can, because it's so short priced. And I think there's a reason for me to try to just avoid Colin Morikawa because of that. I don't see the same history of him coming in here. Now we know he can win. He's great here. maybe he does win, but I think that that's something that you just need to keep in mind, that his schedule is completely different than the other times he's played here.
Yeah, I think that's a good handicap on your part, and it makes sense. He's changed his routine. Will that benefit him or will that hurt him? I know it was a couple years ago. It hurt me quite badly. I was on Colin Morikawa, and he had as much as a 9-shot lead
Oh,
on
I had him in that
Sunday.
week too. Yes.
Everybody
Yes,
did.
I
And
know, right?
he fell apart, and John Rahm ended up winning. But no, there's
Yeah.
no doubt about it that he traditionally is very successful at this golf course.
Oberg, the thing I'd be a little bit hesitant, not the fact that he played here last year, because again, second appearance seems to work, but he didn't really have a great result. But also his putting seems to be off a little bit. So I'm a little bit concerned with that. But other than that, I think that at the end of the year, we weren't seeing the best of him that we were earlier in the season. Other than that, I think we have to go to here's a quick question with you with Matsuyama. Okay, he's got 3 top 5s and 7 appearances at this event, but in his last 4 years, he hasn't finished better than 13th, and he hasn't played well here. And I've seen other players have this kind of history at golf courses where the first 3 or 4 times they played, very good, but then all of a sudden, the last 3 or 4 times they played in a 7-year span, they can't buy a top 10, they can't buy a top 25. And so I always thought that it might be interesting to find out, of course, is it psychological? Is it something in his game that he's changed from when he was here 10 years ago to where he is 5, or is it something in the stats? So how do you, like, if you see something like that, because some people might just go, oh, 3 top 5s out of 7. That's pretty good. Matsuyama's got a good resume here. I'm going to go ahead and take him. But should you take a guy that has not played particularly well here recently while those top 5s happened a long time ago?
Well, I think you can make a case for it, sure, that a guy just has, for some reason, gone sour on a particular golf course. And maybe the other side of the coin is that because Matsuyama finished 58th out of 59 players here last year, maybe we're getting a little bit of value on him. Maybe we're getting a nicer price on, a guy who's ranked 6th in the world and has done very well here in the past, who is also won at YLA, won the Sony Open in 2022. He's a tremendous putter. I mean, he is historically not been a very good putter his entire career, but he's much better on Bermuda grass, where he has won, like I say, at the Sony and the Phoenix Open down in Scottsdale, also another Bermuda course. And one of the reasons I liked him is because he won on another course that is wall-to-wall Bermuda down in Memphis, the FedEx St. Jude Championship in mid-August, just a handful of months ago. Hideki Matsuyama won there, the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. So he's got a recent victory. So I feel that the form is probably still pretty decent. We know he likes the surface. And oh, by the way, he also won at Riviera last year, which is a correlated course for us. So maybe the timing is right for him to get hot here at Kapalua once again. And also, Greg, over the last 24 rounds, we know this about Matsuyama, and it shows up in the stats as well. Over the last 24 rounds, Hideki Matsuyama is ranked 2nd in this field for scrambling. He's an excellent scrambler, and you need that around this track. So a lot of things made sense for me. What you're saying, absolutely. He hasn't been that great here as of late, but everything else has been pretty good recently. So we'll take our chances with him. The shortest shot I played this week at 22-1. And again, I found 22 here locally at the Circa Resort and Casino.
Yeah, keep that in mind too, because you're not able, being that you live in Las Vegas, we're using the DraftKings odds, but you can't wager on DraftKings. So.
No, I can certainly view the prices and everything, but in Nevada, DraftKings and FanDuel are not yet legal.
All right, so Thegali, you took him last year, and he was 2nd. You did not take him this year. I do notice that, again, I'm just going to get back to putting, but it looks like he hasn't been putting all that particularly well recently, even though he's very good usually on Bermuda. But considering you took him last year, 2nd, 28 under par, why did you decide to pass on him this year? And he's sitting there around 25-1.
felt a little bit too obvious to me, and that he would be very popular.
I
I
like
typically
that.
don't like to always go with the popular choices. And I'll tell you honestly, that's why I didn't land on Justin Thomas either. Thomas
Sure.
was one of the first guys that popped into my head because, like you say, he's been playing really well,
Yeah.
and he's got an excellent history here. But I felt like, okay, everybody's aware of JT coming around and playing pretty well right now, and you're paying a little bit of a premium for that. So that's why I stayed away from him. But kind of the same thing with Thigala. I felt he would probably be a fairly obvious choice here. And hey, either one of them might win. They're tremendous. I mean, they check a lot of boxes for sure.
Yep.
I just kind of like to zig when everybody zags.
It's completely understandable. I tend to do that myself. Okay. On. So here's a nice one and done story for you. So On finishes fourth last year in this event, and I like them because Jan Stevenson talked on a show. We did a preseason show. By the way, Brady and I are going to do a preseason show the week of Pebble, I believe. I think that's when we said we're going to do that. And, we decided to use these next several weeks as a preseason, and then we're going to go in and give predictions, and a lot of predictions on a whole bunch of stuff. So, but we did a preseason show last year. Jan talked about how On was really starting to come on and thought it could be a nice sleeper. So I had that in the back of my head. I saw the fourth place, and you know what? One and done at Sony. And boy, did he choke that off at the end.
Well, man. you got yourself a runner-up finish with him. And he had quite a run in Hawaii last year. Like you say, finished fourth here at Kapalua, and then the very next week finished second, lost in a playoff at the Sony Open there. I'm trying to remember who was the champion.
It was actually, was it the it
was Grayson Murray. Yes. Yeah. God. Yeah. What a tough story that is.
He nailed that 50-foot putt because On had like a 5-foot putt.
Right.
Murray was 70 feet away, and I'm thinking, I got this in the bag. Right. And then Murray nails it, and you just knew that the pressure now was on, because he just thought, like I did, oh, this is over. And he couldn't hit the short one in. So,
well, I like him for a few different reasons this week. He's one of the longest hitters in the field. Over the last 24 rounds, he is second in this field for driving distance. And I mentioned that distance is a little bit of an advantage here at this golf course. And obviously it worked to his favor last year. He's not a great putter, so you got to just hope that he gets hot with the flat stick for a few days. He certainly has the length, but he's also apparently in pretty good form, because he just won in late October, just a couple of months ago on the DP World Tour. He won the Genesis Championship there. So the form looks good. He's got good history here. And I talk about the correlated courses. It was also last year that he finished 16th at Riviera and was also 16th at the Masters. So something about these types of golf courses that tend to match up with one another, he seems to do well at. That, combined with the fact that he appears to be in good form, having just won, I landed on him at 35-1.
Okay. In this grouping here, there are two players that were on my list, Batia and Scott. And as you can see, the odds there. But I don't know. Scott, I have a good feeling about him this week, considering he's coming off that third place finish in the DP World Tour Championship. And of course, that was a really good week for him. Rory winning that one. Who else? But I also like the fact that Adam tends to play well on these types of golf courses. I know it's the same situation, sort of like we talked about with Matsuyama, where he had more success maybe earlier in his career here than later. And he hasn't played here a whole lot. He's only played here twice in the last 10 years, and those results weren't that great. But he does have a good history overall here, like Matsuyama. So I have a good feeling about him this week. And Batia also, very good on Bermuda grass, 14th last year, coming off the fourth at the Hero, second in Japan with his last finish on the Japan Tour. So I think, he's rounding into potential form as well. And maybe he's one of those golfers that'll pull the second appearance victory. And we know he's he's obviously already proven that he's one of those up-and-comer talents on the tour who just needs to go out there and put together a really big year. And I don't know if it's this year, but it could be.
It very well could be. And when we get to that preview show, he might be one of my guys that I say is a bet on in 2025. He's a great player. I like the kid a lot, and he's absolutely an up and coming star. I think he's got a good chance to do very well here this week. He seems to have the game for it. You talked about Adam Scott, and I thought about him because he makes a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. Eventually I stayed away from him just because, like you said, he hasn't been here in a while, but this guy's another Masters champion at Riviera twice. So, he makes sense that he should do well at this golf course as well.
Tony Finau. He is, in case you remember, he was on your list of 3 matchups. So you like him over Hovland. And is that a combination of things? I mean, strangely, Victor Hovland has not played well here. It looks like a golf course that he should actually play well at, but he just hasn't.
Yeah, he has not done well here at all, ever in his career. I believe 4 or 5 different appearances, has never finished that high at all. And Finau has not been great here. He's kind of been hit or miss, and he does have some Hawaiian descent too. So you'd think maybe it would make sense for him. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but you'd think it might work. Colin Morikawa has some of that Polynesian descent as well, and he seems to flourish here. So I don't know, but Finau's game, I mean, he's tremendous at Torrey Pines. That's a correlated course. He's done well at Augusta. He's been in a playoff at Riviera. I think Tony Finau probably has a game for just about any course, but long off the tee, good scrambler. Not always the best putter. His putting has improved, but you would think his game would make a lot of sense at this golf course. It was a little bit of a go against Victor Hovland in the matchup for sure. And there is some trepidation with Finau because, he's coming off of recent injury. He had to pull out of a couple tournaments late in the fall series, and then also pulled out of the Hero World Challenge a month ago in the Bahamas. I think it was an ankle injury he was dealing with. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I got to figure by now, if he's in this event, he's feeling good and he's ready to go. And I thought that price, I saw anywhere from plus 110 to plus 115 on Tony Finau to defeat Victor Hovland. And I thought, in my mind, at worst, that's a pick'em. So we're going with value there in my mind.
Yeah. Victor, his average finish is 25.3.
Yeah. And that's back when the tournament was only about 30 players deep too.
Yep.
So no, he hasn't been that good here.
A couple more players on this group. By the way, Wyndham Clark is on my list, and this is actually one is a little bit of a wild card pick for me, even though we know how talented Clark is. But I don't know if his game is exactly where he wants it to be or feels it should be. But once again, he played last year, so I'm going to go with that. Maybe see if I can get lucky with that second appearance deal. Also, seems to do well at conditions that are a little bit windy, longer. He's such a powerful player, so he should be good with the length. And so I decided to take a chance on Wyndham. I was thinking about Grayserman, and boy, did he turn his career around this past year, late in the year, with 4 top 5s in his last 6, including 3 runner-ups. Now he hasn't won yet professionally. But he was someone I really gave some thought. I just didn't want to take anybody that had never played the golf course before. And Robert McIntyre really fit the same bill. I was close to thinking about him. Windy conditions on Thursday shouldn't bother him. He's coming off, I believe, back-to-back 7th place finishes. But I just decided to stay away from anybody who hadn't played the golf course before.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Grayserman. He caught my eye as well because he's been so otherworldly hot as of late. But if you look at those tournaments where he's done really well, not a whole lot of big boys in those events. They haven't exactly been a signature event where you have the best players in the world surrounding him as well. It's also interesting. We talk about the correlation with Augusta National. Let's take it even one step further. When was the last time a debutant won at Augusta National? 1979. They basically don't win first timers at the Masters, and they don't win here either at Kapalua. So there's another similarity between the two courses. But ultimately, I stayed away from Grayserman because I think this is going to be a whole new level of stage for him. He's never been at a signature event before. He's never played this event before. Who knows how many times, if ever, he's played this golf course before. And now he's rubbing shoulders with Justin Thomas and Colin Morikawa and Victor Hovland and Tony Finau. I think this is a whole different landscape for Max Greiserman, and I don't expect him to finish runner-up again. He might, certainly, but I'm going against Greiserman this week because of those factors.
Yeah, that's the reason why if I'm going to take someone like that, I want him to have odds like I do with Echeverry at 100-1. But at 40-1, yeah, that's
pretty short.
Yeah, can't do it. Okay, and then moving along here, Post On is another one of your picks. He's sitting there now at 45-1, and he finished 5th last year. So he does have an 11th and a 5th in 3 appearances. Talk about why you put him on your list this week.
Well, you like to lean on putting. JT Poston is one of the very best putters in the world. He's got a tremendous short game, and he is also seemingly in good form as of late, like Ben On, who had a win on the DP World Tour in October. So did JT Poston. He won right here in Las Vegas at TPC Summerlin at the Shriners Children's Open. And he always seems to flourish in a birdie fest. This guy can, we talk about being a good putter. Good putters tend to do well in a birdie fest, and JT Poston is exactly that guy. So good putter, great short game, good history at the course, finished 5th here last year, then went over to YLA at the Sony Open and finished 6th, and a great scrambler. I mentioned the short game, and also, has that history of being, good in birdie fest. So, and you're getting a nice price on a guy that, was knocking on the door with a top 5 finish last year as well. That again comes off of a win in the last couple months. So I thought that was very fair and a good price on a guy that, I don't see any reason he won't contend again.
I have Harman in my group at 50-1, and Harman also very good on Bermuda. And I also thought that overall, if you take a look at it, he's played here 4 times. He's got 2 top 5s. He was 5th last year. And I know he's not on the form that he was before he won the Open Championship, but still, I think considering he was 5th last year, and I know that he seems to be really good on these types of setups, the easy ones, the longer ones, believe it or not, even though he's not a long hitter. At 50-1, I decided to add him as one of my long shots.
Both Brian Harman and JT Poston play out of Sea Island in St. Simons Island, Georgia, where they play the RSM Classic. Of course, Harman, a Georgia Bulldog. So they are very familiar with not only coastal golf, but like you say, the Bermuda grass surface as well. So yeah, both of those guys check that box.
Max Homa. What's wrong with Max Homa? He's played here 4 times. He does have 1 top 5, but can you single out anything in particular for both Max Homa and Matthew Fitzpatrick as why their games are off right now?
Well, I'm pretty sure with Homa, it's been the iron play, and I'm not positive what has gone south for Matthew Fitzpatrick. But yeah, both of those guys, I mean, Homa really noticeably has just fallen off a cliff here. I'm not sure when it happened. It seemed, I mean, he had that near miss at the Masters, right, in April.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere because he's not good at Augusta normally.
Yeah, really hasn't been great in majors until about the last year and a half or so. And now he's starting to show up in a couple of them. But it wasn't too long after the Masters that he kind of fell off and hasn't come back. But I'll tell you what just might wake up Max Homa is the California swing. Once we get to Torrey Pines and Pebble Beach, and that guy, he is one of the best in the world, if not he's like the new Brandt Snedeker when it comes to the West Coast. So we'll see if he can get that started, but I'm not going to land on him here in Hawaii.
There's a one and done tip for you. If you're going to use Max Homa, you use him in California.
Right.
So it's that simple. Zalatoris, we're just going to hope that he'll start to find his game. Interesting that it looked like out of the gates, it didn't take long, but then it just kind of went away. It's nice to see Daniel Berger getting back into the swing of things as well. But Zalatoris has always been about the putting, and that still seems to be off right now, but it's about keeping him healthy, of course. And who knows if he's ever going to get his game back. That injury was so severe and his swing is so severe that you don't know, and you just hope and keep your fingers crossed. Meanwhile, Cole in this group here is also one of your picks and one of my picks. We both have Eric Cole this week. And don't forget, Cole was 14th last year, so this is his second appearance. And in his last two events, he's actually played pretty well with a 15th and a 6th. So why did you go with Cole?
Yeah, not only just his last two events, but 3 out of his last 4, 16th, 15th, and 6th. So, 3 out of his last 4 starts, he's been very good. He's a guy like JT Poston that I really like at a birdie fest, and also like JT Poston, one of the very best putters in the world. If you look at what Eric Cole did in 2024, he ranks 4th on tour in total birdies. This guy makes a lot of birdies, and that's what we want here this week. We know with the wind only sticking around as it looks right now for one day, you're probably going to need to make a lot of birdies this week. You talk about the current form. That's another reason I liked him. And also what he's done, at this course, what he did the following week at the Sony. He was 14th here last year, followed that up with a 13th at the Sony, made the cut in his first ever Masters. So you've got a connection there with Augusta. And I thought this was another interesting little angle here. I thought the price was nice at 80-1 for a guy that seems to make a lot of sense. He's all over the top of the board as far as where he ranks in the stats this week, Greg. In the last 24 rounds, he is 5th in this field for strokes gained approach, scrambling, and hole proximity from 100 to 125 yards. He's also 3rd in this field from hole proximity from 200 yards or further, and he's number 1 in this field for strokes gained on the par 5s. So it's very interesting. A guy that's not a long hitter is the best on the par 5s and 3rd best from 200 yards or more. He's also really good from close in, from 100 to 125 yards, scrambling, putting, and he makes a lot of birdies. So, he just makes a ton of sense. Here's the one little other interesting angle that I thought was peculiar. Chris Kirk, of course, is your defending champ, right? Well, it was in 2023 when Chris Kirk won the Honda Classic in a playoff. And who did he beat in that playoff?
Oh,
Eric Cole. So maybe it's Cole's turn to win at the Plantation course.
Maybe. I know he had that run where he was just so hot. What was it, about a year and a half ago? And it cooled off last year for the most part, but it does look like he's kind of picking back up again. And he talked about value. Now the odds are dropping down a little bit here, but maybe at every sportsbook's different, so you might still be able to get him at 70 or 80-1. Moving along here, Straka, I was actually thinking about. He's coming off the 9th at Hero. He improved from 21st to 12th in his 2 appearances here, 16 under par to 23 under par. So, and he's really good on Bermuda. So I was thinking about Straka. I didn't put him in my list though. And then there's Kirk, the defending champion. Billy Horschel had that really big win over in Europe against, was that against Rory? I think it was, right?
I can't remember if he beat Rory, but so. He's won over there before. I think it was the BMW Championship where I think he's now a 2-time winner.
Yeah, I think it was Rory. There's Echeverria. Again, I decided I'm always going to put 100-1 shotter in that range for sure, because why not? And he's also somebody that has been playing really well lately. And unlike Greiserman, he has a win. So he's got a win. He's got a runner-up. He's got a 6th place finish in his last 4 events. And he played here last year for the first time, and it was 20 under par, which is not that bad considering he's a lot better now than he was when he was here last year. So that's another player to keep an eye on. I don't really necessarily think that he's just going to be one of these journeyman players. I think he's got potential.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I've liked him for a little while now, and I believe it was the Zurich Classic in New Orleans where I liked the team that he was on. I can't remember exactly who he was paired with now, but I really liked the pairing, the complementary nature of their pairing, and he didn't end up winning that. I think they ended up doing pretty well that week, but now bursting on the scene with a couple of victories as of late. The other guy that I kind of equate to him that I think is a budding star is Austin Eckroat, who just won in Mexico. Yeah. And that guy, didn't even need to be there. He was already inside the top 50 in the FedEx Cup points. You had all these guys in the FedEx Cup fall that are trying to qualify and keep their tour card. He didn't even need to be there and just went out and won the darn thing. He could be another guy that maybe you take a look at as far as a flyer this week.
That's a good one. I like that one. Not just this week, but again, maybe one of those golfers that we'll be talking about on our preseason special when we're predicting several breakthrough players, or maybe players that because one of the categories we're going to have is first-time major winners. So I don't know if these kids are ready for that yet, but we'll find a spot for them somewhere with one of the categories for sure.